Hi, everyone. Tony Costa here from Toronto Apologetics. So glad that you could join us. I want to remind all our viewers that you could always subscribe to Toronto Apologetics. It's absolutely free, and you'll have access to a lot of resources that are helpful for Christian believers, young, middle-aged, old. And so we do have a lot of resources on here. And so we would encourage you to subscribe to the channel. We also encourage you in the description link. There's a link there if you want to be a Patreon supporter of this channel, just to keep this work ongoing, and also to provide the best that we can provide in the area of Christian apologetics. So in this particular video, I want to talk to you about a very interesting comment that a famous atheist, or a member of the New Atheists, Richard Dawkins, a statement that he made recently, just in light of what's been going on in England, particularly with the overwhelming influence that Islam is having in the United Kingdom, and his concerns. He's actually expressed some of these concerns, especially during Easter time. Now, again, if you don't know Richard Dawkins, he wrote the book The God Delusion, and he and Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett and the late Christopher Hitchens were considered to be, some have termed them the four horsemen of the New Atheists. Um, and so Dawkins, of course, is famous for his vitriol against biblical Christianity. He made that very clear in his book, The God Delusion, and also, of course, in his debates with Professor John Lennox. Those debates actually are available online as well. And I think Dr. Lennox demonstrated how vacuous the atheist worldview is. But I want to share an article that appeared, in WND, and it's entitled here. I'm just going to just maximize the print here a little bit, just so you guys are able to read this. World's most famous atheist identifies as cultural Christian. I don't know if Dawkins rightfully earns the title or the place of the world's most famous atheist, but be be um, be be that as it may, the interesting thing is he's actually making the claim that he identifies as a cultural Christian. Now, what in the world is a cultural Christian? Cultural Christian is someone that doesn't really believe in Christianity, doesn't believe in the Christian faith, but they want to live in a culture that is founded on Judeo-Christian principles and ideas. And this is a quite interesting admission. I don't think the Bible recognizes a cultural Christian. You're either in Christ or you're not. You're either redeemed by God, regenerate, or you're not. The Bible does not identify a follower of Jesus Christ as someone who just wants the benefits of Christianity without actually believing in Christianity. It's like folks wanting the benefits of the Christian holidays, staying off at Christmas time or during Good Friday and Easter and so forth. They don't believe what those days signify, but they want to benefit from the outcome of those holidays and so forth. So I just wanted to go through this article with you. And here you have a picture of Dawkins, Richard Dawkins, famous atheist and evolutionary biologist. One of the world's most famous atheists, Richard Dawkins, has delivered a stunning announcement to the world. He identifies as a cultural Christian. So keep praying for Richard Dawkins. Hopefully he's not too far from the kingdom. And then it says, not as a matter of faith, but as a matter of seeing the influences of religion on society. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. He understands that the influence of Christianity on society is something he'd rather live under than live under another religion's influence. Dawkins, a British evolutionary biologist, has taught at multiple United Kingdom schools, including Oxford. He's written books and a well-established reputation for criticism of creationism and intelligent design. A report at Fox News explains his comment about being a cultural Christian came after he learned, now here it comes, after he learned that in London, city officials hung Ramadan lights on the street, but nothing for Easter. So in the United Kingdom, which has been um, from its earliest history, at least after William the Conqueror conquered it, it has been, and even before the conquest of the Normans into England, um, the United Kingdom has been culturally Christian, or at least a nation that was converted to Christianity and that has maintained the Christian faith through the centuries. And of course, during Christmas and other celebrations, Christians, of course, would hang up Christmas lights, as we still do today. But this time around, he was shocked to find out that in London, they hung up Ramadan lights. What exactly are Ramadan lights? Well, it almost seems to be a borrowing from the Christian practice of lighting Christmas lights. But he was shocked that they were doing this, but they were doing nothing about Easter. In other words, this Christian country that but was based on Christian foundations, Judeo-Christian foundations and Christian principles. Some of the greatest minds have come out of that, out of the United Kingdom. Isaac Newton, and we can talk about William Shakespeare, and we can talk about Charles Dickens, and we can go on and talk about a number of these famous thinkers and scientists and even theologians that have come out of England, like Charles Spurgeon, for example, and others, John Wesley, and many others. And then it goes on to say Ramadan, of course, is a holiday in Islam, Easter in Christianity. In fact, London Mayor Sadiq Khan ordered illuminated 30,000 lights for Ramadan. So if the mayor of London, who is a Muslim, he illuminated the city with 30,000 lights for Ramadan, why was there nothing about Easter? Why was there nothing about Easter? And of course, in the United States, President Joe Biden announced Sunday, March the 31st, to be the day, the day of transgender visibility, and that was declared on March 31st, 2024, which was Easter Sunday. Now he goes on to say, this is Dawkins, I must say, right? So we're here, folks, where I've just highlighted it. I must say I'm slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead, Dawkins said in an interview over the weekend. I feel that we are a Christian country. So here's a man who has attacked Christianity, mocked the God of the Bible, mocked Jesus Christ, mocked the Bible itself over and over and over again. And all of a sudden, as he sees his country being encroached by Islam and by a former, or a foreign influence, now all of a sudden he says, I feel that we are a Christian country. So he badmouths Christianity, attacks the Bible, but now is saying, but we are a Christian country. So he likes the benefits of living in a country founded on Judeo-Christian principles, and whose constitution and laws are based on Judeo-Christian principles. And so I'm not trying to be demeaning here, but this almost sounds like a parasite that just wants to feed off the host body. But what else would it be when you attack the belief system, but you like the structure of the belief system and what it has done historically for your country and for the West? He explained, it's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down. I would debate that. And I'm happy with that. Notice that he's happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. I think it would matter if we substituted any alternative religion that would be truly dreadful. So he likes the trimmings, he likes the outward appearances, he likes the cathedrals, he likes the beautiful parish churches like Westminster Abbey and many others, St. Paul's. So he still loves the beauty and the architecture and the history behind these beautiful buildings. And so he counts himself a cultural Christian. Well, the word Christian means, it implies one who follows Christ, one who follows the Messiah. And the Bible, again, doesn't speak of cultural Christians. You're either a Christian who follows Christ, and you're a child of God, redeemed by God. And that type of life, changed life, is what's going to affect your culture, which is exactly why the West became what it was, which is exactly why the West, all the major inventions in medicine and science and so forth, in the Industrial Revolution, even the Enlightenment, even though it had atheistic tendencies to it, the idea is that the West produced these great discoveries. And it's because of that Judeo-Christian worldview that maintained that God was a God of order and law. And so the idea was to observe this order in the created cosmos. So he claims he's a cultural Christian, and then he says, I think, he says here, again, putting my mouse here so you know where we are, I think it would matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful. So if you substitute Christianity for something else, for another religion, he says that this would be truly dreadful. And so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that what Dawkins is getting at here is he's talking about Islam, substituting Christianity. And then he says, it says here, rather, the article, if Christianity and Islam were his only choices, he said he would go for Christianity every single time, the report said. He would choose Christianity over Islam anytime. And then he says, and this is amazing, coming from Richard Dawkins, it seems to me to be a fundamentally decent religion in a way that I think Islam is not. So here's this atheist who says, I'd rather live under a Christian influence than live under Islam because of the Sharia law, which is the Islamic law. And then he says here, he pointed out that Christianity is not great in its treatment of women in some ways, but the holy books of Islam actively demand hostility to women. And so you could tell that he's been doing some research and study, that he knows that the Quran and the Hadith, the Quran in chapter 4, verse 34 talks about scourging, beating your wives if you detect infidelity from them. And the Hadith speaks of women. The majority of them are in hell, and that their intellectual capacity is half that of a man, and their religion is half that of a man, and that if a Muslim man prays and three things cross his path while he's praying, those three things will annul the prayer. It would basically make it a prayer that is ineffective and that it has to be repeated. And those three things, the Hadith says that if a woman, a dog, or a donkey walks in front of you while you're praying, you have to restart the prayer. And so this was so bad that even Aisha, Muhammad's child bride, Aisha said that you have put us on the same level as dogs and donkeys. He goes on to say here, he said, I'm not talking about individual Muslims who, of course, are all quite different, but the doctrines of Islam, the Hadith and the Quran, it's fundamentally hostile to women, hostile to gays. And I find that I like to live in a culturally Christian country, although I do not believe a single word of the Christian faith. So there you have it. So then he makes an important distinction here. He says he's not talking about individual Muslims. And this is important. And this is a fair point. And it has to be said that we are not here. I don't hate Muslims. A lot of Muslims think I hate them. I don't hate them. I don't hate you. If you're a Muslim, I love you for the sake of Christ. I do not hate Muslims. My issue is not with Muslims. My issue is with the ideology, the worldview called Islam. And just as Christianity has been questioned, it has been attacked in academia for over 400 years, and continues to be attacked even by Muslims today, who come out and say very hostile things about the Christian faith. They're allowed to do that in a free country. They're allowed to do that. But there's the standard that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. What is sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. In other words, it's a two-way street. Muslims have to accept the fact that Christians can also criticize the Quran. They can criticize Islam. And nobody should be afraid to speak their mind. And it's not hate to speak against an ideology you disagree with. It is hate when you attack people, because people are God's image bearers. They're made in God's image. And so I'm not here to attack Muslims, but I am here to question Islam. And so Dawkins makes a fair point. He's not talking about individual Muslims, but he's talking about the doctrines of Islam, the ideology, which includes the Hadith, the Quran. And he says it's fundamentally hostile to women, it's hostile to gays. And he says that he wants to live in a culturally Christian country, even though he doesn't believe a word of the Christian faith. So once again, he doesn't like the Christian faith, but he likes what the Christian faith has produced in society in the West. And then it goes on to say the Fox Reporter noted in 2006, the God delusion Dawkins took a strikingly different tone. There he said, to be fair, much of the Bible is not systematically evil. So notice now he's backpedaling a bit here. Much of the Bible is not systematically evil, but just plain weird, which is kind of interesting because Dawkins, in another book called River Out of Eden, he said there's no such thing as good or evil. There's no such thing as good or evil. There's no such thing as right and wrong. If there's no such thing as good and evil, why does he use the word evil to describe the Bible? But he says it's not systematically evil, even though in his book, The God Delusion, he said it was, and that God was a tyrant and he was petty and so forth. But notice he's now backpedaling a bit, saying much of the Bible is not systematically evil, but just plain weird. What he means by that is, I can't believe the miracles in the Bible. I can't believe all the supernatural stuff. Well, if God doesn't exist, then he's right. But if God does exist, then God is able to enter the time-space continuum, and God is able to do what he wishes for his own glory. But then he says, do those people who hold up the Bible as an inspiration to moral rectitude have the slightest notion of what is actually written within it? Well, they should. They should. And if not, then shame on them. They should be reading the Word of God. They should know what's written in the Word of God. And so there you have it, folks. Richard Dawkins, the author of The God Delusion, is finally admitting that he would rather live under a Christian cultural system than live under an Islamic cultural system, because he knows the implications of Sharia law. So, folks, all of this to say that the reason why Christianity is attractive and the reason why Christianity has this aspect of being appreciated is because the great constitutions of the West, whether it's the United Kingdom, whether it's the United States Constitution, which in my opinion is probably the best constitution in the Western world. And of course, it's founded on certain principles that were already enunciated by Englishmen like John Locke, the famous philosopher, and even going back to the Magna Carta of the 1200s, the Great Charter. But I think the United States Constitution is the one that truly represents what it is to be free citizens, with freedom of expression and freedom of speech and so freedom of religion and so forth. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms talks about these things, excuse me, but in actual fact, what you find is that speech in Canada is becoming more and more restricted. And the whole idea of passing legislation on hate and hate speech and so forth, when the government defines what is hate, then you know you got a problem, because it's the government that wants to control speech. And so unfortunately, that is seeming to be the case in many Western countries. Even the United States is beginning to see pockets of people talking about getting rid of the First Amendment, even the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. So we're living in very, very interesting times. But despite that, we have someone like Richard Dawkins openly admitting that he would rather live in a Christian cultural country and enjoy the benefits that Christianity has to offer, which you will not find in the Sharia law. There is no Islamic country in the world run by the Sharia that respects freedom of speech, the freedom to convert from Islam to any other religion, the freedom of conversion, the freedom of women to not have to cover their heads if they don't want to. There is not one country run by the Sharia that allows the freedoms that we have in the West, particularly the freedoms that we find in the US Constitution. So folks, thank you again for watching. I trust this has been beneficial. And want to remind you again, if you have not done so, please subscribe to Toronto Apologetics. It's absolutely free. And again, if you do want to be a patron supporter, the details are in the description box. We would appreciate any support you give to the ministry. And so like the video, please share the video with other friends. And we look forward to seeing you again. And you take care and God bless. Bye for now.